Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the StoryADay podcast. We have just wrapped up week 1 of StoryADay May 2020, the 10th anniversary. It's all very exciting around here. Have you been writing stories this week? If you have, congratulations. If you haven't, and you would like to, it is not too late. Jump in, come to the blog, look at the prompts, write to the prompts or ignore the prompts. Just soak in all this energy of knowing that other people are writing along with you and things will go well. They may not go so well, but that's okay because we've got the whole month. And if you commit to writing every day, then you just get up and you go, and there's no question about whether you're going to write today, and you just find something to write. It's been really interesting. I've continued the StoryADay Cafe writing sprints with the Superstars group, and it has been so interesting watching people go from not knowing what they're going to write, fighting against the prompt, to starting to write and easing into it and finishing their story for the day, just absolutely giddy and gleeful that they've written something. Sometimes you don't get a complete story. Sometimes you get seduced by a scene from your novel. This is all fine. You make your own rules. Some people are dedicated to writing a story a day in May, and they will write anything, even if it's just a couple of sentences, to get that story a day. But the fact that they're sitting down and writing every day it's kind of like their warm-up, and they're writing so much more. The comments are fantastic. I encourage you to go over to the blog and check in on what everybody's writing every day. And if you are writing, please come over to storyaday.org and leave us a comment. Let us know how it's going, and you'll see all the other people there who are writing and enjoying themselves and congratulating themselves and celebrating any writing that they managed to get done this month. In this first week, we had prompts from some amazing writers. Joanne Harris gave us an eerie prompt. Hallie Efron gave us a mysterious prompt. Naomi Kritzer encouraged us to rewrite a fairy tale. Joe R. Lansdale left us with a decapitated body in a clock tower to deal with. Mary Robinette Kowal had us crocheting a portal, and yes, the people in the group who can't crochet still managed to write that. Dean Knight had us rewriting the Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe's story, from the victim's perspective. Julia Elliott had us blending genres. Debbie Ridpath Ohi gave us a broken crayon prompt. We had to figure out what was coming out of the broken crayon. Marta Pelrine Bacon, just this very morning, has given us a very quarantine-friendly prompt where we have to look around the room for an object and write a story about that. But she also showed us how to not just write about the object, but how to make it matter in a story. So go over and check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Coming up in the next few weeks, we've got prompts from Therese Walsh, the blog mama over at Writer Unboxed. We have some names you'll recognise from this podcast, among other things. Gwendolyn Harris has a prompt for us, specifically designed for flash fiction. Gabriela Pereira has one that will definitely get you writing. Grant Faulkner, the executive director of NaNoWriMo, is playing with us. He's also the director of the 100-Word Story website and is a big fan of short fiction. So stay tuned for that one. Tobias Espekel, the science fiction writer, will be around. Simon Rich, who writes short stories and novels, one of which turned into Miracle Workers on TV. He's given us a prompt. Gregory Frost, Art Taylor, Seanan Maguire, Jonathan Maybury, several StoryADay regular writers, Matty Dalrymple, who is the indie author and author of The Short Tack, a book about how to incorporate short writing into your writing career and what to do with stories once you've written them. She's got a prompt for us. And last but by no means least, and certainly actually not last because it'll happen before the end of the month, but our official bookseller, Rob Cadogan, one of our official booksellers from Reeds and Company in my hometown, will be giving us a prompt. Rob's also a novelist and is living the dream. He's written a novel, he's a co-owner of a bookstore, and any book titles that you click on in the StoryADay May universe this May, any of the prompts that have books associated with them are being sold through Reeds and Company, our official bookseller, and those links will go to help support that young independent bookstore, which has only been around for about a year. It's a fantastic store. They bring in tons of authors. They're doing virtual events this at the moment with authors who can't come physically. So any purchases that you click on StoryADay prompts will benefit Reads and Company, and I encourage you to check them out at their website, readsandcompany.com, and on their Facebook page where they have tons of information. So we're doing a good thing here. We're supporting a local bookstore and many fabulous writers, new authors and established authors that store is part of helping promote. It's a wonderful community that we have here. Authors, new authors, published authors, booksellers, teachers, just it's so great to see everybody coming together in this moment. If you have been writing this month, I know it starts to get difficult round about now. If it hasn't already started to get difficult, I think this week and next week, the end of week 1 into week 2, is really difficult because you're still seeing so much mountain ahead of you. But I really encourage you to keep writing. And before you even sit down to write today, I'm going to encourage you to do a little journaling. Write down what you've achieved in the past week, focusing on what you've achieved, not what you failed to achieve. And ask yourself what went well on the days when you did manage to write. And what could you do differently to make sure that you have more of those days in future? And I want you to think about things like your habits. When was the best time of day for you to write? When was the worst time? What materials were you using when it was going well? Were you typing? Were you handwriting? Were you using a specific pen? Did you have a candle lit? Were you listening to particular music? Did you use a prompt? Did you not use a prompt? Sit down and journal on those things today, and then think about other things that worked for you. What types of stories came most easily? What tone did you use in the stories that you enjoyed the most? Did you like happy endings? Did you like teeny tiny stories? Did you like long rambling stories? Did you like mystery? Whatever it is, have a think about, first of all, your habits, and second of all, what you actually wrote this week and what gave you the most pleasure or satisfaction. Maybe satisfaction is the better term, because pleasure is momentary, satisfaction is deeper than that. So make some notes. Capture what's happening as you go through this big writing push, because so much is happening, so much is coming at you this month, especially if you are writing every day. You're going to learn new things. You're not going to come out of this month the same person you were when you went in. And lots of the lessons that happen to you in week 1 will get crowded out by things that happen in week 3. So take a moment today to write down what you've done, what went well, what you might do differently, what you enjoyed writing, and what you might try next week to make next week successful and satisfying. If you haven't been writing and you're feeling like you missed the boat, don't worry about having missed the boat. You can jump in at any point this month and just say, all right, I'm in. Don't try and catch up. Don't start on day 9 and try and write 8 stories and catch up. You've got 2 options. One, you can just write it off and say, I'm writing for the rest of May. I'm writing a story a day for the rest of May. Or you can decide to extend your month into June. And you can say, okay, well, I'll write from the 10th of May to the 10th of June. And keep it going that way. We will be here. Like, StoryADay is a year-round community. The blog is there all year round. If you post under something on the 10th of May, I will see it. And I will be hopping in to congratulate you if you're still writing later in the year. And you can always email me too. So if you haven't started writing yet, go over to the blog, look at the prompts. You don't have to do today's prompt today. If you can browse through the older ones and find one that you like better. It's entirely... the problem with that is that you can get lost in too much choice. So it's not a bad idea to just write to today's prompt, regardless of whether you think you're going to be able to, because creativity is prompted by limits. You know, necessity is the mother of invention and all that, and limits can be a good thing. But if you haven't started yet, dig out your short story framework, which you probably got from me when you signed up for the mailing list. I'm assuming you're on the mailing list. If you don't have the short story framework, you can go to storyaday.org, and in the sidebar there's a little box that lets you sign up for the short story framework. If you're already on the mailing list, you will not end up on it twice. You will just get invited to a page that lets you download the framework. So dig out the short story framework. Set a timer. I always suggest setting a timer for 40 minutes because that's manageable. And just write, and if you write for 40 minutes, check your watch. 5 minutes before the end, you're going to have to start wrapping things up. I want you to get to the end of these stories. Why write? Why are we doing this crazy thing? And why are we doing it now when everything is so up in the air? This year has been intense. We've gone through the initial panic of a pandemic and what are we going to do and how are we going to adjust our lives? Now we're getting into potentially the boredom part where we're getting a little restless, and do we really have to stay indoors, and is this going to go on forever? And I will say to you what I annoyingly say to my children in the summer, that boredom can be a really good thing, especially for creative people, because if you're bored, you're going to get restless, and if you get restless, you're going to start to want to create. And if you've got time and space to create, you can do some weird and wonderful things. I was reading a newsletter this morning that came out from one of my favourite short story writers, George Saunders, and he said, even in the small scale of my own life, this period feels like a chance to reconsider my way of living. The things that really matter are meekly stepping forward and saying, time is short, don't forget about us. He says we don't have to live the way we've been living just because we've been living that way all these years. I'm finding that in my daily life. I am reconsidering, wasteful shopping habits. I am cooking more, or at least letting my husband cook more. I am thinking about the ethics of what I buy and where I buy it from. And I am thinking about how I use my time. Am I watching more or less TV? Maybe in the first few weeks, I was certainly watching more TV because I couldn't concentrate long enough to read. I was trying to watch, catch up on movies and things that I'd missed over the years. Now I'm watching less and reading more and writing more. So take this moment. Don't feel like you have to be forcing creativity if you're not there yet. But I think StoryADay May has come at quite a good time for a lot of us this year. Just when we were starting to raise our heads and go, okay, I figured out how to get to the grocery store and get my stuff away in under 3 hours. That's I feel pretty accomplished now. Okay, how do we start rebuilding life that doesn't look exactly like it looked in January? And how can I make it better? How can I take advantage of that? And obviously, if you are directly affected by this pandemic in a different way, I don't want to sound like I'm not acknowledging that, or like you should be doing anything. But for those of us who are just sort of on hold, this is a moment when we can consider which pieces get put back into our routine. And if writing is one of them, StoryADay may be a way for you to work on creating a writing practice and figure out which pieces are going to work for you, which pieces you're not willing to give up when life picks up speed again. I hope you're writing. I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying the prompts from StoryADay. If you get a chance, if you run across any of our guest prompters on Twitter or anywhere like that, do let them know that you appreciate them supporting us and giving us a little glimpse into their brains. And take some time to figure out what's working for you right now and what you might do differently next week. And remember, it's all a process. It's all a journey. We're not racing to a destination. We're going to be writing for the rest of our lives. What's working for you now? What might be better next week? You can't really decide that for next year. Let's just figure out what we're doing now. And if StoryADay can help in any way, then I've done my job. I hope you're well. I hope you're writing, and leave us a comment at the blog and let us know what's going on. And most of all, keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.